My billionaire husband owned a private island he never let me visit. He said it was for boring business meetings. Last month, I showed up unannounced. What I found wasn't business meetings. It was server rooms, shell companies, evidence of $500 million in fraud. When I reported him to the FBI, his entire empire collapsed. My name is Victoria. I'm 30 years old. And this is the story of how I discovered my husband was a criminal and how I chose justice over $1 billion. Let me start from the beginning. I met my husband, Richard Ashford, when I was 23 years old. I was working as a marketing manager at a startup in San Francisco. Richard came to our office for a potential investment meeting. He was 35, handsome, confident, wealthy. Very wealthy. He'd made his fortune in tech, started a software company in his 20s, sold it for hundreds of millions, then moved into venture capital and private equity. By the time I met him, he was worth over $1 billion. At least, that's what everyone said. We started dating 2 months after that meeting. He was charming, generous. He took me to the best restaurants, flew me to Paris for the weekend, bought me jewelry, treated me like a princess. I fell hard. 6 months later, he proposed, with a diamond ring worth more than my parents' house. We got married in a lavish ceremony in the Hamptons. 300 guests, celebrity chef, live orchestra. It was like a fairy tale. My life changed overnight. Suddenly, I was married to a billionaire, living in a mansion in Pacific Heights, shopping on Rodeo Drive, vacationing in the Maldives. It was everything I'd never known I wanted. And for the first few years, it was wonderful. Richard was attentive. We traveled the world, met interesting people, attended charity galas. I stopped working. Richard said I didn't need to, that I should enjoy my life, focus on our home, our future family. So I did. I became a billionaire's wife, and I was happy. Or at least, I thought I was. But there was always something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Richard had secrets. He'd take phone calls in other rooms, late at night. He'd leave town frequently, sometimes for days. Business, he'd say. Investor meetings. Boring stuff. And there was the island. Richard owned a private island in the Caribbean, off the coast of the Bahamas. He'd bought it 3 years before we met, said it was an investment property, a place for business retreats. He went there once a month, sometimes twice, always alone. Never invited me. "It's all business, darling," he'd say. "You'd be bored to death. Just meetings and conference calls. No fun at all." I accepted this. For 5 years. I never questioned it. Why would I? I trusted my husband. But last year, things started feeling off. Richard became more secretive, more distant. He was on his phone constantly, texting, emailing, always working. He traveled more, was home less. And when he was home, he wasn't really there. Distracted, preoccupied. I started to wonder. Was he having an affair? Was there someone else? I decided to find out. Not by confronting him, but by surprising him. Last month, Richard told me he was going to the island for a week. Business retreat, important investors, very boring. He left on a Monday morning, private jet to Nassau, then a helicopter to the island. I waited 2 days. Then I made my move. I chartered a boat. Told the captain I was surprising my husband. We left from Nassau Wednesday morning. The island was beautiful, small, maybe 20 acres, covered in palm trees, white sand beaches, a modern mansion built into the hillside, guest cottages, a helipad, a private dock. The boat pulled up to the dock. I stepped off. The place was quiet. Too quiet. No one around. I walked up to the main house. The door was unlocked. I went inside. "Richard?" I called out. No answer. The house was empty, but everything was on. Lights, air conditioning. Music playing softly, like someone had just been there. I walked through the rooms, living room, kitchen, dining room, all pristine, expensive furniture, art on the walls. But something felt wrong. This didn't look like a business retreat. This looked like a vacation home. I went upstairs, bedrooms, all empty. Then I found Richard's office. Large room, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, massive desk, multiple computer monitors. And that's when I saw it. A door. Hidden behind a bookshelf, slightly ajar. I pushed it open and found stairs, going down, into the ground. I hesitated. Something told me I shouldn't go down there, but I did anyway. The stairs led to a basement. But not a normal basement. This was a facility. Climate-controlled. Fluorescent lighting and servers. Dozens of them. Computer servers. Blinking lights. Humming. Running 24/7. I stared. Why would Richard need this much computing power on a private island? I walked deeper into the room. Found a desk, more computers, monitors showing financial data, spreadsheets, numbers, transactions, millions of dollars. Moving through accounts I didn't recognize, company names I'd never heard of. I sat down at the desk. Started clicking through files. My hands were shaking. The more I saw, the more confused I became. Shell companies, dozens of them, registered in the Cayman Islands, British Virgin Islands, Panama, Delaware, all owned by other shell companies, all connected somehow to Richard, bank accounts, offshore, holding hundreds of millions of dollars, transactions, moving money between accounts, breaking up large sums into smaller ones, structuring, I knew what that was, money laundering. My heart was pounding, I kept digging, found files labeled investor reports, opened them. They showed returns, huge returns, 20% annually, 30%, consistently, year after year. But then I found another folder. Actual performance. I opened it. The real numbers. The investments were losing money. Badly. Richard's funds weren't making money. They were hemorrhaging it. But the investor reports showed profits. I stared at the screen. This was fraud. Investment fraud. He was lying to his investors, showing them fake returns, paying old investors with new investor money. A Ponzi scheme. My husband was running a Ponzi scheme. I felt sick. I kept searching. Found more. Tax returns. Richard's personal tax returns. They showed income of maybe $20 million a year. But I'd found bank statements showing he'd moved $500 million in the last year alone. He was evading taxes, hiding income, using the shell companies to avoid reporting. Everything I was seeing was illegal. Massively illegal. Federal crimes. I didn't know what to do. I sat there in that underground server room, on my husband's private island, surrounded by evidence of fraud. And I tried to process. The man I married, the man I loved, was a criminal, a sophisticated, organized criminal, running a multi-hundred-million-dollar fraud operation. I heard a noise upstairs. Footsteps. Someone was in the house. I panicked, closed all the windows on the computer, stood up. Footsteps coming down the stairs. The door opened. Richard stood there. He froze when he saw me. "Victoria, what are you doing here?" I couldn't speak. "I asked you a question. What are you doing here?" "I wanted to surprise you." His face changed, got hard. "You shouldn't be down here." "What is this place, Richard?" "It's my office, private office. You had no right." "I saw the files. the shell companies, the fake investor reports. He went very still. What did you see? Everything. The Ponzi scheme, the tax evasion, all of it. Silence. Then he smiled. Not a nice smile, a calculating smile. Well, this is unfortunate. Unfortunate? Richard, you're committing fraud. Massive fraud. I prefer to think of it as creative accounting. You're stealing from people. I'm managing investments. Those people are happy. They think they're making money. Everyone wins. They're not actually making money. You're paying them with other people's investments. And as long as new money keeps coming in, the system works. That's a Ponzi scheme. It's illegal. He stepped closer. Victoria, listen to me very carefully. What you saw here, you need to forget it. Forget it? Yes. Forget you came here. Forget what you saw. Go back to our wonderful life and pretend this never happened. I can't do that. Yes, you can, because you're my wife, and you love me, and you love our life together. I don't even know who you are. He sighed. Fine. Let's talk numbers. How much do you want? What? To forget what you saw, to keep quiet. Name your price. I stared at him. You're trying to bribe me? I'm trying to be practical. You want a bigger house? Done. More jewelry, a yacht of your own, whatever you want. Just let this go. People are going to lose everything when this collapses, Richard. That's not your problem. Yes, it is. These are real people. These are rich people who want to get richer. They knew the risks. They didn't know you were lying to them. His expression hardened. Victoria, I'm going to say this once. You have two choices. You can take the money, keep your mouth shut, and continue living like a queen. Or you can be difficult and lose everything. The house, the lifestyle, the money, all of it. You'll get nothing in a divorce. I have the best lawyers money can buy. You're threatening me? I'm giving you options. I looked at my husband. This man I'd loved, built a life with. And I realized I didn't know him at all. I need time to think, I said. You have 24 hours. Then I need an answer. I left the island that afternoon, took the boat back to Nassau, flew home to San Francisco, spent the night in our mansion, alone, thinking. Richard stayed on the island, waiting for my answer. I could take the money, keep quiet, live in luxury, pretend I never saw anything, but hundreds of people would lose their life savings when the scheme eventually collapsed, because it would collapse. All Ponzi schemes do. Or I could do the right thing, report him, lose everything, but save those people. I spent all night thinking. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I called a lawyer, not our family lawyer, a criminal defense attorney, someone Richard didn't know. I told him everything. He listened carefully. Then he said, Mrs. Ashford, what you're describing is serious federal crime. Securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion. If this is real, the FBI needs to know. If I report him, what happens to me? You'd likely be protected as a whistleblower. You didn't participate in the fraud. You discovered it and reported it. You'd be doing the right thing. I'd lose everything, wouldn't I? In a divorce, probably. But you'd keep your freedom and your integrity. And there are whistleblower rewards for financial fraud of this magnitude. You could receive a percentage of recovered funds. This isn't about money. Then what is it about? Doing the right thing. He nodded. Then let me make some calls. 3 hours later, I was sitting in a conference room with 2 FBI agents, special agents from the Financial Crimes Division. I told them everything, showed them photos I'd taken of the server room, the files I'd photographed on the computer, everything. They listened, took notes, asked questions. Finally, one of them said, Mrs. Ashford, are you willing to cooperate fully with our investigation? Yes. This will likely mean testifying against your husband. I understand. You'll be ending your marriage, your lifestyle, everything. I know. Why are you doing this? Because it's the right thing to do. They looked at each other. Okay, we'll need you to wear a wire. Get him to talk about the fraud on record. Can you do that? I swallowed hard. Yes. The next day, I flew back to the island, wearing a wire. The FBI was monitoring from a boat offshore. Richard was waiting for me at the house. So, he said, what's your answer? I need to understand something first. How long has this been going on? Does it matter? Yes. He shrugged. About 12 years, since before I met you. How much money? Total, maybe 500 million in investor funds, plus another few hundred million I've hidden from taxes. And when were you planning to stop? He laughed. Never. Why would I stop? The money keeps flowing in. I keep taking my cut. Everyone's happy. What happens when it falls apart? It won't. I'm too smart for that. All Ponzi schemes eventually collapse, Richard. Mine won't. I've got it perfectly balanced. And if it does, what about all those people who'll lose everything? That's their problem. They shouldn't have been greedy. I stared at him, listening to him admit everything, feeling the wire recording every word. So what's your answer? He asked again. Are you in or out? I'm out. His expression darkened. Out? I'm leaving you, and I've already contacted the FBI. He went very still. You did what? I reported you yesterday. I'm wearing a wire right now. They've recorded everything you just said. His face went white. You bitch. They're on their way. You should probably call your lawyers. He lunged at me. I ran, made it outside. 2 FBI boats were already pulling up to the dock, agents swarming onto the island. Richard Ashford, you're under arrest. He tried to run. They tackled him, handcuffed him, read him his rights. He was screaming, Victoria, you'll regret this. I'll destroy you. But he couldn't, because I'd done everything right, reported the crime, cooperated fully. I was a witness, not a defendant. The trial took 2 years. Richard fought it, claimed I'd set him up, that I'd fabricated evidence. None of it worked. The FBI had seized the server room, all the files, all the proof. They'd found over 500 million in hidden funds, traced transactions back 12 years, identified over 300 victims. Richard was convicted on all counts: securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion. The judge sentenced him to 25 years in federal prison and ordered him to pay full restitution. Everything. The mansion, the cars, the art, the island, all seized and sold to pay back the investors he'd defrauded. I got nothing. In the divorce, I walked away with what I'd brought into the marriage. Basically nothing. But I was free. Free from him. Free from the lies. Free from complicity in his crimes. The FBI kept their word. I received a whistleblower reward, 10% of the recovered funds, about $50 million, more money than I'd ever dreamed of having. But I didn't keep it all. I set up a fund for the victims, the ones who'd lost everything. I wanted to help them rebuild. It felt like the right thing to do. Today, I live quietly. Small apartment in Seattle. Normal life, normal job. I work for a nonprofit helping fraud victims. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, turning in my husband, giving up the billionaire lifestyle. The answer is no, not for a second. I could have kept quiet, lived in luxury, let hundreds of people lose their life savings. But I couldn't do that. I couldn't be complicit, even if it meant losing everything. Some things are more important than money. Integrity, honesty, justice. Those things matter more than mansions and yachts. Richard will be in prison until he's 65. By the time he gets out, he'll be old, broken. Everything he built, gone. And it's his own fault. He chose greed over honesty, fraud over integrity, and he paid the price. The moral of this story is simple. When you discover someone you love is doing something wrong, you have a choice. You can protect them and become complicit, or you can do the right thing and face the consequences. I chose the right thing, and I'd choose it again, every single time. To anyone out there who's discovered something terrible about someone they love, I know it's hard. I know it feels impossible. I know you want to protect them. But sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is hold them accountable. Even if it costs you everything. Even if they hate you for it. Even if it destroys your life as you know it. Because doing the right thing is always worth it. Richard thought he could buy my silence, thought money was more important than morality. He was wrong, and now he's paying the price, while I sleep soundly at night, knowing I did the right thing. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share. And remember, integrity isn't for sale, no matter how much money is on the table. Do the right thing, even when it costs you everything, especially then.